Welcome to the show. I'm Sean Lang. I've spent the last several years building and operating a digital agency that has grown past 50 people, which has shaped how I think about the decisions that start to matter once things get complex. Today, I'm joined by Greg Shuey, CEO of Stride. Now, Stride scales D2C brands and boutique hotels by protecting and growing their revenue in an AI-disrupted search world using proprietary tools and 2 decades of search marketing experience. Greg, it's great to finally have you on, man.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. Why don't you tell me a bit about your agency? What does Stride do?
Well, we're a boutique e-commerce marketing agency. We typically run a client roster of around 20 to 30 clients. That's kind of where we max out. So we're a very hands-on, high-touch agency. We work direct to consumer brands, like I mentioned, e-commerce. We help them primarily with search marketing. So we help them across search engine optimization, content marketing, paid search, as well as AI search optimization. We do a little bit of work in meta ads, email marketing. We did a lot more work a couple of years ago in that space and have just quietly just kind of phased out of it a little bit, although we do have some legacy clients that we still continue to service in those areas.
And how long has the agency been around for now?
We are going into our 14th year.
14th year. So you've rolled with the punches. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened in our industry
We
in
have been
14 years.
beat down
That's
hard several
that's
times.
putting it lightly. And I'm sure that when you started your agency, you didn't know that that was going to happen. But why? Why did you start an agency? And do you ever find yourself lying awake at night asking yourself the same question?
You know, yeah. So I've been doing this whole SEO thing for about 20 years now. Been doing it a long time. Prior to starting Stride, I helped build and scale an SEO agency called SEO.com. I was with them for about 4.5 years. When I wrapped up my time there, I was the VP of services. I oversaw about 115 team members. And basically, the services team was the biggest team there. And you can probably guess what we did. We did SEO. And again, this is about 13 years ago when I started to take a look at things from a really high level. And I'm like, we need to be doing more than SEO, but SEO.com, that doesn't quite make sense. Like,
True. You're kind of limited in, in what you can do.
yeah. And so, one thing led to another. I ended up leaving and spent the first month just kind of doing some consulting and contract work. And, kicked around the idea of about starting an agency, kicked around the idea of just, going in house and being like a VP of marketing or a VP of search or something like that. And I started consulting for a company called signs.com. And the guy who ran Signs, I guess he still runs signs.com, was a good friend. He worked with me at SEO.com for a long time and was doing some consulting with him and for him for his business. After a few months of doing this, I mean, he was an SEO guy as well. He met up with a group that owned a large format print company. And luckily, they had just acquired signs.com as a domain name way back when. And they decided to start a D2C company. And, after a few months of helping them start to grow their keyword rankings and start to get some search visibility, the ownership group came to me and they're like, well, do you want to start an agency? Let's put some money behind this thing. And that's kind of how it happened, right? They made it a very easy yes, a very soft landing for me to be able to come in and start to build kind of on their dollar without a whole lot of risk on my side. First, I would say maybe 8 or 9 years, we all kind of worked together to build the business. And during COVID, they decided that they were going to sell all of their businesses, including signs.com, and they asked if I'd want to buy them out. And
Wow.
took the offer, ended up buying them out, completed the buyout, I think in about 2023. So it's just me these days, but that's kind of how that happened.
Interesting.
Looking back, would I do it again? I don't know, maybe. It's been really stressful. It's been a lot more stressful than I thought it was. So, who knows?
So you're the first person on here who has a story uh, where there's kind of like a soft landing at the start. This is
Yeah,
a very unique situation. I've never talked to anybody like this. So
sure.
I'm really curious. What was it like going from that initial setup to you buying them out and then you being on your own? What were the differences?
Um, a sense of urgency for sure. Me taking over day one after completing the buyout, it's like, okay, now, we got to go do this thing. I got to make sure that I protect margin, I protect, revenue, that I can drive profits for the business consistently every single month so that I don't have to plow my own cash into it. And, honestly, by the time we got to that point, we were pretty profitable, but looking back, it was like, we supported signs.com. We supported a couple of their other businesses. And, that was enough kind of revenue to be able to support the team. And then we just kind of built organically and slowly, honestly. And so a new sense of urgency kind of came over me and the team as we started to embark on this new journey. And it's just kind of morphed from there, like complete overhaul of systems, complete overhaul of, benefits packages for team members, adding more benefits. Because the way that we were set up, we all of the companies kind of shared the same HR team. We all shared the same benefits packages. And there were a lot of things there that I was like, this isn't great. Like, I wish I could do it differently. And that opened up a lot of opportunity to be able to come in and build different and better things for our team members as well. And so all in all, it was, a really positive thing to be able to go through that process.
That's super interesting. Is there anything that you felt that you lost when you went from the original setup to just you?
I did not. So, I mean, we've kind of ebbed and flow over the years in terms of revenue between, 1 and 2.5 million. Right. We're like, again, we're small boutique agency. On the flip side, their biggest business was doing, what did they sell for? I want to say they sold for like 80 million or something like that, or maybe
Wow.
even more than that. Like, that was their focus. They're like, we're building this sign business. We know this is the industry we work in. Greg's over here kind of doing his thing in the agency mode. Super fun to be a part of and see how that's growing and how he's getting clients and yada yada yada. But we're hyper focused here. And so, like, when they're like, we're selling this business, I don't think they wanted to be in the agency business anymore. And so um, outside of support, like on the accounting side, on the HR side, there wasn't a lot of them helping me build, if that makes sense.
Yeah. As I talk to more agency owners and as my own agency journey continues, I get more and more and more sort of fascinated by and focused on the founder role. Like how did your role change over time? I'm sure it looks very different now compared to when it started.
Well, sure. I mean, when you start an agency, you're doing everything. Except I didn't have to do the HR and the accounting and the janitorial and that kind of crap, but um it's interesting, as you start to add team members, as you start to add headcount, you have to go from salesperson to account manager to strategist to executioner to someone who's starting to manage team members again. And, I had a lot of experience with that. I had 5 or 6 direct reports at SEO.com. And then again, underneath them, we had about 115 team members. So managing at a small scale, I really enjoyed and still do continue to enjoy. I mean, we ebb and flow between 12 and 15 team members, employees, contractors, those types of things. So it's still very small, very intimate. Um, but kind of each time, like, leveling up, right? We've got to put in a middle management because I need to be freed up more to do sales and marketing for the organization, as well as overarching operational type things. So we've got to add a layer here, but we also need to make sure that we continue to take care of our team members. And so, each level up was something fun and exciting for me. Fast forward to December of last year, we started to get rid of middle management. So I mean, we were honestly too small to have VPs, but we had a couple of VPs, and throughout 2024, those VPs slowly went away, and I started getting more involved with the team again and working directly with our strategists, working directly with our account managers, and so it's ebbed and flow, over the last 13 years, like putting in place management, getting rid of management, getting closer to
Mm.
the team, getting closer to the clients. And it's been fun. It's been interesting. I don't even know if that answered your question.
No, I mean, this is whether it answered the original question. I don't even remember what it was. This is the stuff that I love to talk about, and I wanted to
Mm.
ask a little bit more about. So you and your approach to people. Most agency owners I talk to, most of the ones that I also sort of like, when we're like doing a diagnostic on their agency,
Yeah.
the thing that most agency owners struggle with the most is people, because
Yeah.
most people start an agency because they're good at doing the thing, but they're not
Sure.
actually good at the business side. They're not good at the people side whatsoever, and so they continually sort of like struggle and hit this invisible ceiling because they're so focused on like a tactic or a shiny
Yeah.
object or just like more of the marketing and not necessarily like the people side. But it sounds like you approach it from a different angle, and you're comfortable with the people side. I'm curious, kind of what has sort of shaped your approach, and what is your approach to managing people?
Oh my gosh. How about I don't have an approach and I just try to be human? How about that?
I mean that works for some people, but other people that other people
Oh
that does
my
not work for.
gosh. I mean, in terms of like bringing on team members and staffing, I make sure to take my time and I make sure that I jive with each person that we bring onto the team. I think that's super important, right? And that works really well for a boutique that isn't growing super fast, right? At SEO.com, we went from like 1 million to 10 million in 3 years, and we scaled super fast. And so you didn't have a lot of the personal relationships with the team members like I do now. And so, if you're growing slow, making sure that you're spending proper time to vet team members, that you connect with them professionally, personally, making sure that they not only have the skill set, but like, they're good humans. They're able to, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I'll use the word jive again, jive with other team members and not just me, and making sure that we're able to use that to build culture and camaraderie across the team has been super important. And then making sure that, everyone has their KPIs, KRAs, OKRs, whatever you want to call them, and how that all ties up so that there's extreme accountability across the organization. Everyone knows that they're pulling their weight, and what Joe does over here affects Nancy over here in terms of, how the business grows, profit dropping to the bottom line, bonus structure, all of those things. So I don't know.
Wow.
Again, I don't even know if I answered your question.
You did, and you're saying all the right things, Greg. Most again, most agency owners I talk to, they don't they don't have a firm concept of accountability in the agency. They
Yeah.
don't have firm concept of like one of my first questions is like, do you have KPIs that you measure your team off of? And then they're kind of like,
What's a KPI?
no, no, not really. I'm like, and you're saying things are difficult, huh? Interesting. So no,
So
that's I love it. I mean, you've clearly been doing this for a while, and you've learned a lot of things. And so Greg is saying the things that I'm always saying on the podcast. So this is fantastic. However, it hasn't all been roses.
no.
Let's dig into some of the struggles. What are some standout? What was the first time in the agency's history where you were like, oh shit, this is
COVID. Of
this is
course,
hard.
COVID. I mean, anyone who didn't go through COVID, they're weak. How about that? Are weak agency owners.
I agree. COVID was weird. COVID was weird and difficult. But what was Stride's experience with COVID?
Well, I mean, we were actually positioned quite nice going into COVID. Like we were e-com, direct to consumer. Guess what happened when everyone started working and living at home full time, right? They had to start shopping online. So it was great for us. Problem number one arose when, a month after COVID started, everyone became an e-commerce marketing agency.
Hmm.
Everyone, people who had served as lawyers in the past, all of a sudden e-commerce. And so it created a lot of competition for us inside of COVID, right? Um, Fortunately for us, we were able to retain the bulk of our clients going into COVID. We got our, what was it called? Like PPP loan. Is that what it is? PPP? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I
We were
think you're right.
fortunate enough to get that. And, just kind of wrote it out, which was awesome. What wasn't awesome is when we came out of COVID and for one reason or another, and I can't put my finger on it, we started to see a decline in the business. So like we hit peak revenue during COVID. Coming out, I almost wonder if just like clients were ready for a change. I would say that's where we came across like the first big wham is we started to churn clients coming out of COVID. And so
What year was that? What year was that? Because we experienced that as well, and I have some theories, but what year was that?
that was in like 2020, end of 2022, 2023
Yeah.
ish. Another thing that we did inside of COVID is instead of just being e-commerce for everyone, we decided to focus on a couple of industries. And so we really hyper focused on baby, fashion, home decor, sporting goods. And there's a long story behind why we picked those industries, but short story is we looked at where we were having the most fun, the most success, and we're the most profitable. And so we're like, we're not going to compete at the broad e-commerce level anymore. We're going to go super niche. Um, Coming back out of COVID, we had to open that back up a little bit. We still focus primarily on those four industries, but we have some sub industries as well that we work in. And then, if the opportunity is right, I typically won't turn away anyone. Um, Another big kind of slap in the face going into COVID is that we were doing a fair amount of work in the travel space. Like one of our biggest clients was Intercontinental Hotels Group, which shut down overnight.
Mm.
And those are like the Holiday Inns and, all of those big brand hotels. And we were doing all of their SEO for them. And that revenue disappeared overnight. And so that's another one that we've kind of layered back in and we've started to be more aggressive about over the last year or so is bringing on more boutique type hotels. I don't know that I ever want to work with a large scale chain ever again because I'm not big into guerrilla clients that can crush you if they decide to leave. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean those are just some of the challenges that we faced over the last few years.
So it's interesting. I think that like you're totally correct that COVID definitely created a lot of e-commerce agencies overnight. Our
Yep.
agency, when COVID hit, we were pretty 50-50. We had 50% e-commerce because my partner at the time was running his own e-commerce brand, and
Right.
that's actually that was the genesis of our agency was the marketing he was doing for his e-commerce brand. And then the other half were sort of like local service businesses. And of
Yeah.
course, local service businesses, the first thing that they cut when COVID hit was spend, and a lot of them actually went out of business. And so
Yep.
we're like, well, I guess we have now by default been made an e-commerce agency. And then the clients that stayed on suddenly experienced a meteoric rise. And then
Yeah.
we thought that we had the golden touch. The clients thought that they had the golden
100%.
touch.
Yep.
And my theory is that at the end of COVID, real life hit, and then
That
people
is true.
people no longer had all of this money burning a hole in their pockets. So because people were buying stuff that they didn't really actually want or need or care about. They were
Sure.
just buying stuff
Yep.
because they were bored. And then at the end of COVID, that stopped and they started just buying stuff that they cared about. And then so you had 80% of brands that actually kind of sucked.
Yeah, that is
Unfortunately,
true.
as much as my heart goes out to these people who lost their businesses, but they had not built strong businesses. They had just been taking advantage of a captive market, but thinking that they had the best product ever. And then after COVID, they crashed. And so those clients left, they churned, they never hired any other agencies.
They
They shut
just
down or
they
got
just
bought.
ceased to be in operation. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think
Exactly.
many of our clients went out of business. Some of them probably did, but, we also had Meta was a different beast during COVID, right?
Oh man.
Privacy laws and all of that stuff hadn't gone into effect, and so
Before
generating
iOS 14, it was
yeah,
just like printing money. And we didn't
generating
know. We didn't know until it was
custody
gone. And then it was like,
it was crazy.
oh, oh
Yeah.
no. And I mean, even that shuttered a number of agencies that didn't necessarily have the skill
Yeah.
required. And everyone else had to get really good at media buying, I feel like,
And
overnight.
and it also it made it so and even more so over the last 18 to 24 months is if you don't have world-class creative, it's hard to compete on Meta. And, that's one of the reasons why we've kind of slowly started to transition out of it is because the subset of clients that we work with and how large they are. I mean, we work with mostly small-ish businesses, and they don't have the budgets to build amazing creative at scale. And so it's hard to compete in Meta. It's just another one of those industry changing things that can make or break your agency.
Absolutely. Okay, so back to my original question of challenges and struggles. COVID
Yeah.
was one of them.
Yep.
Uh, this shows how old I'm getting because COVID still feels like it was last year, but COVID started, oh my God, 6 years ago now.
It's
So,
crazy.
but between COVID and now, have there been any other sort of standout things that you've had to learn from, that you've had to get better from?
Um, you know, I was honestly so about 3 years ago, I joined an organization called Agency Management Institute. And the things that I have learned through Drew McClellan and his organization have been eye-opening and have really helped me transition from a kind of a fly-by-night operator to a very deliberate planner, the way that we manage our money, the KPIs that we use to manage the agency, and that has been a huge thing for us and really has transformed the way that we have more predictability, the way that we can, you know, if we hit this metric, the rest are going to fall into place all the way down to dropping cash into the bottom line. And so that was a fairly big transformation for us kind of over the last couple of years is just the way their curriculum and the way that they help build and grow agencies has been huge.
So, if I always like to ask the question of what would you tell yourself just starting out, but knowing that there are a lot of new or early agency owners in the audience. What are say three things that you would tell yourself, but also them to do to sort of like fast track some of those difficult learnings?
Well, when I look back and I think back, I was probably a little arrogant, honestly. Like, I helped build this agency to a 10 million. I know exactly what I'm doing. No, you don't. And no, I didn't. Game changes immediately once you're the guy in charge and you're the one who's putting cash into the business, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I mean, listen to podcasts, find a mentor, join a group like Agency Management Institute, get in a virtual peer group. I'm in one of their live peer groups and meet with people who are like you on a regular basis, and also make sure that you're talking to people who are a year ahead of you or more or further ahead of you, right? They can help you navigate things that you're going through. It's one of the things that I've loved, and now I'm just gonna go on an AMI rampage here. It's like,
Go for it, man. I used to listen to that podcast all the time when I was coming up.
sure. Yeah. I mean, it serious game changer. Their virtual peer groups meet monthly, and you come into these groups and you're like, here are the problems, and there's always someone who's been through it and can help you fast track. Right. The live peer group, we meet, twice a month. We meet in Denver. And same thing, we meet for 2 full days during that, and boy, do we go deep. And, we get into financials and we solve problems and we just help agencies be even stronger coming out of those 2 days based on everyone's unique perspective and expertise and experiences. Like, it's critical to not go it alone.
So the agency is definitely, and the agency model in general, but the agency specifically is kind of like what do they call it? Like a ship of Theseus. You're always replacing boards on the boat, and like, is it really the same boat anymore? And I mean,
No.
that's debatable. So how? I mean, it's kind of a very broad question, but maybe you can sort of highlight a few things. But how has the agency fundamentally changed since you started it?
Oh, gall. I mean, we were just shoestringing it. I mean, the crappiest reporting to, um, using Basecamp as a project. Like, who uses Basecamp? Does Basecamp even exist anymore? I don't even
It,
know.
based on other agency owners I know, it does, and some people use it.
It feels like every year we try to up level our tech stack. I mean, we're replacing our reporting platform over the next month. It just looks so different. We were babies, who just didn't know anything. back then to very calculated decisions that are being made. Like we replaced Teamwork and went to ClickUp last year. Now we're going back through and we're overhauling ClickUp. We've hired a ClickUp operational company to come in and help us overhaul it and give us more clarity and just helping us to make better decisions at a higher level versus just like, oh, Basecamp, that sounds good. Let's just put Basecamp in. And it was very fly by night, right?
Yeah. That I
Eh,
mean, that is the early agency experience. It's fly
sure.
by night. You either started as a freelancer or maybe you were one of the unfortunate people that got sucked into one of these SMMA online courses that just told you sign clients and then you'll be a digital marketing agency. And of
Sure.
course, we all know that there's a little bit more to it than that.
Yeah.
Um,
I
uh,
also think if I could say one more thing, I also think
Absolutely.
looking back, like back then it was let's just sell anyone and everyone. And today it's very much so like you have to meet these 5 qualifications in order to talk to me.
Love
And
that.
once we
Yes.
peel back the curtains, once we get into analytics data, once we kind of do our initial audit and potential strategy build, it's like you could potentially still be disqualified because then it's like we need revenue. Now it's like we need good revenue and we need to set ourselves up to be as successful as possible with clients. And so, I mean, we turn down way more business than we take on these days. Whereas back then it was like, yep, you're a client. Cool. You're a client. You're a client, you know?
Yeah, I think that more than a few listeners probably feel attacked by that. And rightfully so, rightfully so. Well, can you quickly just explain the difference in your mind between revenue and good revenue? Because this is something that literally every agency struggles with, even some of the bigger ones as well.
Sure. I mean, revenue just in general is I need money coming in to pay the bills. And there's a good chance that I'm going to churn this revenue in the next 90 to 120 days, but I don't care because I need money into the business in the bank so that I can make payroll and yada, yada, yada. Good revenue is I expect this revenue to be on my books for the next 18 to 24 months. And if you can build a business that way and you can be patient, that's when you're really going to start to scale and build the type of revenue flow and profit that you need to have a sustainable agency. That's my opinion anyway.
I think that no, I think that's more than opinion. There's a lot of important truth in that. Um, Final question. You started as an SEO agency. You mentioned AI is now a component of that. Can
Yep.
you just sort of explain what the shift, either the shift or maybe the integration of AI has kind of looked,
Oh man, there's too
if
much.
at all, or is it the more things change, the more they stay the same? Like I don't
It's a
know.
little bit of that, right? It's like if you've been doing good SEO for years and years and years, and you've been building content that's actually helpful and is built to, handhold and nurture a potential customer through to conversion, chances are you're probably about 80 to 90% of the way there to be optimized for AI search. There could be a little bit of content tweaking, Q&A type content that needs to be added to, PLPs, PDPs, category product pages as well as blog posts. So it's just kind of like the natural progression. Yes, AI, different AI engines, LLMs, whatever you want to call them, are very sophisticated. And there's a lot that kind of goes into understanding how they work and how to properly optimize content. But if you're doing great work and you're building for the end user and the customer, you're almost there. And so it hasn't been a huge shift for us as an agency because that's how we've always been building,
It's kind of like the foundations and the fundamental principles always matter.
right?
As inconvenient as that is for those of us who are always looking for the next hack. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's like
Yep.
just focus on first principles, do the evergreen thing, do the thing that is slow and unsexy, and that's ultimately the thing that will take you to the finish line.
Yep. Try not to take shortcuts. Try not to hacks, like you mentioned. Like build for the end user. And that if how about one final word of wisdom? Because I know we're coming up on time.
I love it. I was going to ask you for one, so this is perfect.
Every single marketing agency, I don't care if you're a PR agency, I don't care if you're a link building agency, whatever. You need to spend time upfront doing customer research for your clients. You need to know who their customers are. You need to have a really good idea of what their journey, their customer journey looks like. You need to understand how they're using search engines, how they're using TikTok, how they're using Meta to help surface information, to help solve problems, whatever, right? And if you can gather that information up front, everything else becomes easier. No matter what the marketing channel is, everything becomes so much easier, especially since we're really focused on search, right? It's like, okay, what does search encompass these days? It's Google, AI, it could be Amazon, could be considered search. Like, looking at search, really trying to understand and map that buyer journey, then you're building the right content pieces, then you're doing the right SEO, then you're building links on the right blogs and news sites where these people spend time online. It could potentially drive a click back to the website in addition to a link, and kind of all of those things start to snowball. And again, it gets so much easier when you do that instead of just going in and guessing and hoping that it works out.
Yeah. Words of wisdom indeed. Definitely a great place to close. Greg, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find out more about you and also Stride?
LinkedIn, man. Stride.com, stride with a Y, STRYDE.com. And then, there may be a couple of Greg Shueys. I've never met them on LinkedIn, but if you do a search for Greg Shuey on LinkedIn, I'm probably going to be the first one to pop up. So, connect with me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks, man, for having me. It was a good time.